This story begins from an existential place. What choices have I made to get to this junction in my life? What is my identity? And further, what is my creative identity? The knowledge of being who or what a person or thing is, that is an essential question. We all gravitate towards areas of interest, things we do that people associate with us. In our youth, nothing holds us back from being freely creative. No voices of judgment or self-doubt, unbridled imagination, and a creative identity still ripe with potential. As we age and experience more adversity, we seem to lose some of that natural creativity we possess. More obstacles and pressures are present, both real stressors, such as the cost of living, as well as perceived pressures of being successful or meeting materialistic milestones. So what happens if that connection with the arts is so strong one pursues it as a career, and it slowly starts to morph into a creative identity? What is that? Representational projects that are formed in the interaction between the creator, multiple audiences, and nuances of creativity informed by societal discourses. Is my creative identity separate from my personal one, or are they intertwined and jockeying for position? What sacrifices are necessary if you aren't the small percentile that make it? For me, the guitar became a big part of my identity. Songwriting and coming up with original creative ideas are part of who I am. Performing all the time in junior high and high school, starting a band. And that phase played a huge part of my identity. How I dressed, the people I hung out with, the inspirations I had and still have. During this time, the question, what are you going to do with your life, starts to be asked. The concept of tying one's worth to what they do for work is ingrained in us. That led me to a degree in music, which has immense value to me. But tough realities were waiting once out in the workforce. What is needed to be self-sufficient? Can it be done purely by creative output? Or are more traditional forms of employment necessary to survive with the cost of living today? There have been times when I have strayed too far from the creative path, turning to employment avenues I thought offered more security, but left me feeling underwhelmed and wondering what my identity is. I now know I don't need to be a struggling artist to feel like I am reaching my potential. Meeting some of those societal landmarks makes it easier to be creative, when the next gig or teaching job isn't the difference between having enough for rent or not. Getting to this point was not always easy, plenty of times feeling lost and guilty for not reaching some of my lofty creative goals I set as an aspiring artist. The beauty of life and having a creative identity is you can always work on it. It's a never-ending pursuit, and that's what really matters. What does it do for the creator? If people are connected to that, then that is such a bonus. It's not about how many followers you have or albums you sell at the end of the day. It's about how much happiness and fulfillment does your creative identity give you. I've also come to realize that not all creations have the same impact. What I thought my creative fulfillment was in my 20s is much different today, especially now that I'm a father. My son is the best of my creative output. The power and impact of that I could never have projected in my younger self. What I'll tell my son is, your work doesn't determine who you are. Your identity is not shaped by the factors that society want us to think. Not the car that you drive, but the impact you have on the people in your life. How will people remember you when you're gone? Being fulfilled by one's path of identity is understanding that it will continue to change. Creative identities will always be in flux, and with those changes comes growth and fulfillment beyond what I ever thought was possible. Essentially resolving the creative imbalance. One crisp fall day, a bright-eyed boy is born. Full of joy and youthful curiosity, he has so much room to grow and explore. With no worries or judgments, he is freely creative and openly expressive. He yells, laughs, and explores this incredible place with genuine openness and intrigue. He lets his creative imagination run wild. His creative fulfillment is high and not clouded by any other variables. With time, his identity begins to be shaped by many other factors: the environment he is raised in, the social encounters that he has, and the values he develops. As a teenager, even more variables begin to cloud his identity and ability to be freely creative. New factors like peer pressure start to appear, which can help or hinder his identity develop. As he grows up and matures, the same questions continue to be asked. What will you be when you grow up? What will you do with your life? Feeling the need to be defined by a career path, he elects to follow his passion and pursue music and the arts. Filled with exuberance, he embarks on a path of performance after education. As he becomes an adult, more pressures start to arise. The need to earn money to further his creative goals, and the cost of living in our fast-paced world with materialistic definitions of success. He begins to realize he cannot just live as an artist with no concerns or stressors as he did as a child. Living off nothing but his passion is not feasible without making some sacrifices to meet societal expectations. The world seems vast and intimidating as the strings of his identity are brought into question. Is creativity really the core of his essence? Or was he straying off the path he set out on to meet these perceived notions of success? Factors start to pile up that force him to spend less and less time with his music. A void is created instead. The task of keeping up with both real and perceived expectations seemed insurmountable without the creative fire that drives his soul. The fear of external judgments and not having a sound career path keep him from putting his art first. The balance is off, and his creative identity is not fulfilled. His mind is riddled with other thoughts that are not fueling the most important fire of all. Then he decided to make a change. He stopped spending time thinking about the void in his life. He decided to invigorate his ecosystem with the creative catalysts of new people and experiences. He found that he had many areas of his life that provided fulfillment, and his creative identity was just one avenue of his worth. Balance was being restored again. Writing and being creative warms his heart just as it did as a young child. He takes control of his identity and no longer lets societal pressures cloud the judgments of his self-worth. After all, what matters most is the impact you have on the people you care about, not what job title you have. Sometimes, the best creations are the ones that change and challenge your identity in new ways. Life has a way of coming full circle. As a father, he's able to continue his creative journey through the eyes of his child, feeling the fulfillment of his identity and creativity more than he ever thought possible. The creative balance is back.